All right, so I
All
am
right.
here with Liz, and she is an alum of Concordia St. Paul. Liz, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell us about your current job.
All right. Hello, my name is Liz Jarosz. I went to Concordia, oh boy, 2013 to 2017. And I got both my bachelor's and my master's degrees in sport management from Concordia. I am currently a recreation supervisor for the city of Shoreview, Shoreview Parks and Rec. I've been here for not too long, for about 9 months, but I've been in the Parks and Recreation field for almost 10 years, almost a decade. So it's been quite a while.
Yes. And what led you to this career path? Did you know right away? We find a lot of students that are like, I had no idea Parks and Rec was even an option,
Mhm.
like that I could work in the
Right.
community and manage facilities. So what forks in the road got you to where you're at?
Sure. Yeah. So when I first got to Concordia, I knew one thing, that I wanted to play softball, and that's all I knew. I did not know what I wanted to major in. I didn't know what I wanted my career to be, and I didn't even know where to start. But I chose to get my degree in sport management because I always had a passion for sports. And I think the classes I took and the professors that I had while getting my sport management degree really helped me narrow down my choices, because I didn't really realize how many career options there were. And my advisors and professors really helped me figure out what my interests were and how I could take those interests and apply it to what I was learning in my classes, and then also have a better understanding of what I want to do after I get my degree, which ultimately led me to working in Parks and Rec. And I have loved every minute of it.
And did you do your master's right away? What did that decision process look like?
Yeah, so I actually graduated in the fall of my senior year. So I graduated a little early from my bachelor's degree, and I still had another year left of softball, because in order to be a student athlete, you also have to be a student while you're an athlete.
Great.
And so I kind of made the decision, I could either start another major or a minor, or I could move into grad school. And so that's when I kind of made the decision to get my master's degree. So I did my first semester of my master's degree while I was still playing softball. But it worked out just fine. It wasn't a huge hindrance in my schedule. I could still go to all my practices, go to all my games, and do all my classes and all my work that I needed to do.
Yeah, good, good. I think that's appealing for some people to think about either going right on, or we do have a 3-2 program where in
Hmm.
5 years you can get both the bachelor's and the master's. If you're considering grad school, a lot of times
Right.
students want to get that undergrad degree and then dip their toes in the industry and see what it's like. So if
Sure.
someone were going to come shadow you for a day, or there's a seasonality with
Yep.
recreation supervisors, what does a typical day and or year look like for you? And maybe there's no such thing.
Sure. Yes, this is kind of a loaded question, because as you said, there's really no such thing. There's not a typical day in Parks and Rec, which is personally what I like about my position. It keeps me on my toes. In my position as a recreation supervisor, I'm in charge of all of the city's recreation sports, so youth and adult. So one day I could be hiring a tennis instructor. And then the next day I could be talking to city council on park upgrades. And then the next day I could be meeting with our pickleball club or filling in as a basketball instructor. In recreation, you wear a lot of hats. But the one common denominator in anything that you do in recreation is to serve the community. In any program I implement or any decision I make, it is always in the best interest of our community.
And how would you think that serving in a community or a public venue with, some taxpayer dollars and opportunities for the public to give input, how would that look different than perhaps managing a private fitness facility or a private entity? What have you noticed between, being a public servant and or
Mhm.
taking that degree and going a private route?
Sure. Yeah. So I think one of the main differences is our customer base, between working in the public setting and the private setting. In the public setting, you are serving an entire community, and the taxpayers there, and the decisions that the Parks and Rec department make have an impact on the entire city, and then some, because we serve non-residents as well. And our customer base tends to have a wider variety of backgrounds and socioeconomic status and things of that nature. And every community is unique, whereas private companies can have a very specific customer base. And with Parks and Rec, you get everybody. I've signed up retired millionaires for pickleball, but I have also worked with families that need fee assistance for a $30 basketball program. You really never know what type of customer you'll be working with because recreation is for everyone.
Perfect. That needs to be a tagline, doesn't it? So you talked about wearing many hats, being a pickleball instructor. You're probably doing some facility supervising, you're hiring people, all that kind of stuff. Who do you think are some key players to get to know? You said you've gotten to go before city council before, probably the mayor. Who are other stakeholders that you think, for a young professional, it's important for them to not be afraid to introduce themselves to?
Sure. Yeah. So I think some key stakeholders some key players in the industry would be Parks and Rec directors or managers, supervisors in the cities that you would want to work for. If you have a good network in the Parks and Recreation field, they can help you get to wherever you want to be. In recreation, who you know is just as important as what you know. And I would go as far as saying that it would be beneficial to learn about the city council and the Parks Commission of the city that you want to work for, because we work with them a lot. And we work with them for all of our major projects. And so it's important that their views align with your views as well.
And speaking of views, how much autonomy do you have compared to, so you are an employee of the city, right? But how much autonomy do you get for programmatic issues, hiring issues, compared to what's maybe dictated, or what does that look like?
Sure. Yeah. So the current city that I work for, I have a lot of freedom to make decisions. It's not always like that. There are some cities where there is a rule book of, and you have to do what's always been done. In the city that I work for, I would say we're pretty progressive. So I get to make a lot of risky decisions, I would say, that may or may not pay off, but I am trusted to make those decisions, and the city council trusts all of our other Parks and Rec employees to make really big decisions on behalf of everybody in the city. But like I said, it's not always like that. So you gotta, when you're interviewing, when you're being interviewed for a Parks and Rec job or any job in a city, it's important to ask the right questions so that you know that you'll fit in and your views will align with the views of the other people that you're working with.
Oh yeah, that is a good point, right? Because you could come in with tons of ideas and think that you know how to solve all the problems,
Right.
and then but not be willing to and open to feedback as well.
Right.
Right. So speaking of being willing to learn and have feedback and being open, what are some things that you've learned on the job that a textbook did not teach you?
Sure. Yeah. So, after working in Parks and Rec for almost a decade now, in some capacity, I've learned that you're likely not going to jump right into being the boss right after college. And I had this thought in my head for some reason that if I didn't get a big fancy job out of college, that I was a failure, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. And I have learned that the career you want or the job you want will present itself eventually, but you have to start somewhere. If that means working part-time or working in an area that's not exactly where you want to end up, you have to start somewhere. And at the same time, I have learned the hard way that you really have to think about how the job you want fits into your personal life. Everyone knows that sports is typically not a 9-to-5 job. And recreation is no different. And I've had jobs where it is nearly impossible to have work-life balance. So it's important to ask the right questions about the position, about the culture, and about the expectations before you take that job.
Very good points for sure. I think people sometimes get a little blindsided by not knowing what they're getting into.
Right.
So thinking professionally, how do you stay on top of trends? So for instance, pickleball, and based on whoever's watching this, maybe it won't be a trend anymore, but my parents certainly play it 4 days a week, so I know it's a trend. But how professionally, are there journals? Are there conferences?
Yes.
How do you have mentors? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I have a good network with other cities around me. So we have an athletic management group and we meet once a month and we kind of bounce ideas off each other. You see what other cities are doing, if it's working, if it's not working, how can we implement it in our city for our customer base. And then we also have an annual conference, an MRPA conference. Which is it kind of bounces around. So it's held in a new location every year and it's 4 days long and it's really for learning. There's so many different sessions that are held and there's also a national conference as well, which it also kind of moves around locations, but you can see what cities in other states are doing. You can see what park districts are doing. You can see, you know, what other people are doing and how you can implement those things in your city and how you can shape them into making them something that your customers would want to be a part of.
That's wonderful. And hopefully you feel like you have support from your higher ups to attend and keep learning and keep growing, right? And not be stagnant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. So a lot of students at Concordia who are athletes like yourself do choose sport management or exercise science, and they have come from an athletic background or a field, you know, an idea about sports already. Is it a disadvantage to not becoming as an athlete?
You know, not really. It really isn't. Because like I said, recreation is for everyone. So if you can understand recreation, you can lead a recreation activity. I don't know anything about pickleball and I'm in charge of the pickleball club and we have over 500 people and they all ask me about pickleball and I don't know a thing, but I know who to ask if I do have a question. I have a good group of supporters that I can lean on. And that's what's important about having a good network in recreation, because you don't have to know everything about all the sports, but you do have to have a person that does, you know? And so I would say, no, you don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to be athletic in any way, shape, or form. You just have to know who to contact if you do have questions.
Totally. So that's good to hear that you're not going to be disregarded if you don't come from an athletic background. So let's move into the idea of 2 or 3 students are coming to interview for you for an entry-level position, and they know their theories, they know their ideas behind things. So they're all level on that playing field. But what is that one thing? What's that extra charisma that's going to make somebody stand out?
Sure. Yeah. I think, some of the main characteristics that are important for a person in recreation to embody are, honesty, integrity, organization, being able to communicate with a wide range of people and being able to attentively listen, all those things. But more important than that, I think something that would set somebody apart, the person that I would want to hire would have a service attitude and would have experiences with different types of programs and populations. And for me, the way that I got that experience was by saying yes to all the opportunities that came about. I said yes to everything. And by accepting those opportunities, I got experience as a preschool teacher, as a special events coordinator. I worked in the pool. I worked at our front desk. I did park maintenance. I got to control the city's social media. Am I an expert in any of those areas? Absolutely not. But I have insight and experience, and I can say that I did it. And that's what matters when you're trying to get hired.
Yep, totally. I agree. So to finalize or finish up here, is there anything else that you would tell to students who are considering sport management for a major or thinking they want to get into recreation and parks, leisure services?
Sure. Yeah. So, I don't know if I wasn't ever told, but I think I didn't ever realize how good Parks and Rec jobs were. I have great benefits. I have an impact on my community. I create opportunities for kids and adults alike to make memories. And my work is meaningful. And for some reason, I always looked at Parks and Rec jobs as like maintenance jobs, or I thought there was only part-time opportunities. But there are so many full-time Parks and Rec jobs out there, whether it's a supervisor, manager, coordinator, a specialist, at all levels of government, whether it be for a city, county, park district, state park and rec association. You know, the opportunities come and go on the daily. And they can lead to other jobs in the city as well, such as a city administrator or a city manager. You know, you don't have to stick with Parks and Rec for the rest of your life. It can lead to a lot of different kinds of opportunities. And recreation can be a good starting point to mostly any job that you would want in a city. And I wish, you know, I wish I would have realized it earlier on in my career.
Thank you, Liz. These nuggets have been great. I really hope that students can listen to them and see themselves in maybe where you were a few years ago, making some of those decisions and ultimately finding a job that you love.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's
Thanks
nice
so
to meet
much.
you.
Yeah, you too.